Wild motherfuckers do wild motherfucker shit. Like,
true.
you want some dude who opens up with Shogun with a flying knee when he's 22 years old and catches Shogun on the chin. That's John Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole wild man thing is the reason why he's so goddamn good in the first place. Because he has amazing confidence.
John Jones is, without a doubt, one of the most talented MMA fighters in the history of the sport. With a record of 23-1, a loss questionable in itself, John Jones's impressive MMA career is surrounded by many controversies. From cocaine use, run-ins with the law, to failed USADA drug tests, we're going to cover all the factors that make John Jones such a hot topic. I'm Jun from Tao of Fighting, and this is why John Jones is the most controversial fighter in the UFC. Born to a pastor and a nurse, Jones's life has been deeply influenced by Christianity. He and his two brothers grew up playing football, where they demonstrated their prodigious athleticism since early ages. His brothers ended up playing for the NFL, while John Jones continued to pursue wrestling in college after winning the high school state championship in New York. Jones attended Iowa Central Community College, where he wrestled at one of the best junior college teams in the country. After winning the NJCAA individual title at 197 and helping his team win the overall championship, he graduated with an associate's degree and transferred to Morrisville State College to study criminal justice. In order to provide for his daughter, he dropped out of college to pursue MMA professionally at the age of 20. In April 2008, Jones made his professional MMA debut with a first-round TKO win over Brad Bernard. Over the next 3 months, he amassed an undefeated record of 6-0 before making his UFC debut on a 2-week notice. In his fight, Jones displayed a flashy set of striking with spinning kicks and elbows, earning an unanimous decision over Andre Guzmão. He dominated his next 2 fights against veterans Stephan Bonnar and Jake O'Brien. Then on December 9, 2009, Jones was handed the only loss of his career against Matt Hamill. The co-main event was stopped by Steve Mazzagatti for Jones's 12-6 elbows against Hamill, a technique illegal in the UFC. While Jones was originally only supposed to suffer a point deduction, Mazzagatti asked Hamill if he was done fighting as he laid in his bloodbath. Being deaf, Hamill did not respond, and the fight was called to a stoppage for DQ. Jones came back from the loss with 3 dominant performances against Brandon Vera, Vladimir Matyushenko, and Bellator heavyweight champion Ryan Bader, and earned himself a title shot against Mauricio Shogun Hua. He dominated the fight and won via TKO in the 3rd round, becoming the youngest champion in the UFC. He continued to breeze through his competition and became the poster boy of the UFC. On May 19, 2012, Jones made headlines after news broke out about the superstar being arrested for DUI. Jones drove his Bentley into a pole and was taken to jail before his mother bailed him out for several hours later. Due to his clean image and popularity with the fans, he was let off the hook relatively easy. Little did the world know that this event would foreshadow the dark side of John Jones. Later in the same year, he would become the first MMA fighter to represent Nike globally, signing a multi-year contract to represent Nike in the octagon for the first time against Dan Henderson in September. Henderson pulled out of the fight due to an injury, and Chad Sonnen was set to replace the challenger in a title bout against Jones. Jones refused to fight on short notice, and for the first time in 19 years, UFC had cancelled the entire event. UFC President Dana White was understandably upset.
This is one of those selfish, disgusting, decisions that doesn't just affect you. Again, like I said, I don't think that this is a decision that's going to make John Jones popular with the fans, sponsors, cable distributors, television network executives, or other fighters.
Since then, he continued to dominate through all his competitions, some more than others. On January 3, 2015, Jones faced the biggest rival of his career after an intense, never-before-seen build-up for the fight. The build-up included trash talk from both sides, a darker side of John Jones that was not shown in his early career with the public image of religiously devoted fighter.
Hey pussy, are you still there? You know I would absolutely kill you if you ever did something like that.
You could never.
And the infamous brawl that cost John Jones his deal with the Nike. Jones won via unanimous decision and extended the record for the most light heavyweight title defenses to 8 fights. On this day, he was untouchable. He proved himself as the greatest talent in the UFC roster. It seemed as if no one could take the glory away from Jon Jones. It's true, no one did. No one but himself. 2 days after the fight, news broke out about Jon Jones' failed drug test for cocaine. Despite USADA knowing about the test results 1 month before the fight, they could not stop the fight from happening as cocaine is not listed as one of the banned substances out of the competition. Jones checked into rehab on January 6 and was stripped of the UFC light heavyweight title. When it seemed like it couldn't get any worse for Jones, it certainly did. On April 27th of the same year, New Mexico police issued a warrant for Jon Jones, who was allegedly involved in a hit and run with a pregnant lady. According to witnesses, Jones was seen returning to the scene to grab his belongings before fleeing again. Inside the car, police found a pipe along with marijuana residue. Jones pleaded guilty to the offense and was placed on an 18-month suspension and was indefinitely suspended by UFC. Following the hit and run, Jones is arrested again for violating his probation while he is accused of drag racing on March 2016. He entered a plea deal in April, dropping the charge for drag racing but pleading guilty for the unlawful use of modification of exhaust systems and an improper display of the registration plate. Hungry to get his belt back, Jones was set to rematch the champion Daniel Cormier at UFC 197. However, Cormier pulled out 3 weeks before the event due to injury and was replaced by Ovince St. Preux. Not letting anything get in his head, Jones went on to defeat Ovince St. Preux via unanimous decision and won the interim UFC light heavyweight championship belt. Jones and DC were rescheduled to fight in UFC 200, but this time, Jones was pulled out of the fight USADA due to a potential anti-doping policy violation. Jones's out-of-competition sample collected shortly after his last fight tested positive for clomiphene and letrozole, and Jones was stripped of the title once again. Prior to this incident, Jones had never tested positive for a banned substance. Jones acknowledged his ignorance to the use of the substance found in his out-of-the-competition sample and said he is not a cheater. On October 31, 2016, Jones attended the arbitration hearing which led to his 1-year suspension. During the hearing, it was noted that there were errors or omissions in the declaration of Jones and the teammate who supplied him with a Tadafil that contained the banned substance. The panel clarified that Jones is not a drug cheat, as he did not know that the tablet he took contained the prohibited substances. Despite the panel's note, fans and fighters, to include Daniel Cormier, would begin to label him as a cheater, which only motivated Jones to train harder. After the year-long suspension, Jones returned to the octagon on July 29, 2017 to finally fight Daniel Cormier again in the UFC 214. As one of the most anticipated rematches in the history of the sport, the trash talk lived up to the event. The fight ended in the third round with a devastating head kick KO by Jones. In an emotional post-fight interview, Jones thanked his loyal fans, his haters, as well as his biggest rival Daniel Cormier. Days later, drug tests from July 28th, 1 day before the fight, revealed traces of turinabol, an anabolic steroid. The California State Athletic Commission overturned the decision win over Cormier, and Jones was expected to be suspended for 4 years. To many people's surprise, Jones returned to the octagon 1 year later to face Alexander Gustafsson, a man who many people believed had the reach and the skill set to beat Jones. The fight was scheduled for Las Vegas, but 1 week before the event, traces of turinabol were found in his drug tests. The Nevada State Athletic Commission refused to sanction the fight, so the fight had to be moved to Los Angeles in 1 week's notice, which has never happened before. Many fans and fighters alike complained, but the executives at the UFC couldn't care less. Vice President of Athletic Health and Performance for the UFC, Jeff Nowitzki, covered up for Jon Jones, claiming that the picograms of turinabol exist as a result of the pulsing effect from his previous case, in which he was already punished for. The fight still happened, and Jon Jones made history as the first UFC fighter to take mandatory testing from the US Anti-Doping Agency and Voluntary Anti-Doping Association. His fight against Gustafsson was a crucial fight for Jon Jones. For the first time in his career, fans expressed their disdain for Jones coming into the fight, and many tuned in to watch him lose. However, the skilled fighter demonstrated his dominance and proved that he is still the king of the division. On March 2nd, 2019, he faces a young, hungry lion in Anthony Smith. Smith, who has won 3 straight fights since moving up to 205 pounds, has not been shy about accusing Jones of doping in several interviews. Despite all the controversies surrounding Jones, fans and fighters continue to tune in for a show. Is Jon Jones considered the greatest of all times? Is the UFC giving him too many chances? Or is the media obsessed with his headlines? Tell us what you think by commenting below, and make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more MMA content. Thanks for watching.